You wake before you truly wake. The room breathes around you first, thick air trapped by stone walls, the faint smell of last night's rushes underfoot, beeswax lingering from candles burned down to stubs. Light does not arrive boldly here, it seeps. A pale stripe slips through the gap in the shutters, crawls across the woven wall hanging and pauses like it's unsure whether it's welcome. Somewhere beyond the tapestries, the castle is already awake. Footsteps echo. A door creaks. A servant coughs and immediately regrets it. Hey guys, tonight we step quietly into a medieval morning, specifically yours because you are not just anyone. You are a noblewoman wrapped in wool and linen, sleeping beneath layers of status, expectation, and frankly, a lot of fabric. You probably imagine medieval mornings as romantic, soft chants, golden light, a sense of calm. Reality check. You probably won't survive this without at least one internal sigh and the strong urge to stay in bed. But you don't. You can't. Dawn has opinions about your schedule. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is there. Medieval mornings wait for no one, but YouTube absolutely does. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lie still for a moment because stillness is one of the few luxuries you have left. The bed is not soft by modern standards, but it is yours. Ropes pulled tight beneath a mattress stuffed with straw or feathers, sheets of linen that have been aired but not exactly laundered yesterday. Your breath fogs slightly in winter, even indoors. In summer, the air presses against your skin like a damp blanket. Historians still argue whether noblewomen slept naked beneath these sheets or wore thin shifts, but either way, you wake feeling the weight of the day before the day has even begun. Morning rituals do not start with a bell for you, not officially, but bells will come soon enough. For now, the signal is subtler, the change in sound. Night noises fade, the distant owl, the wind worrying at the shutters, and day sounds replace them. A scullery maid laughs somewhere below. A horse stamps in the yard. You hear keys, always keys, jangling as someone important moves through a door that matters. Even here in your chamber, you are never entirely alone. Privacy is a modern fantasy. Medieval nobility live in layers of semi-witnessed existence. You roll onto your side and look at the canopy above your bed. It's practical, not decorative, designed to keep warmth in and drafts out. Tapestries along the walls serve the same purpose. They show saints, hunts, allegories you've seen so many times you no longer read them as stories, just patterns. A stag forever caught mid-leap. A lady forever lowering her eyes. Sometimes in the dim light you imagine them watching you wake. Judgment is easier when it's woven. One mainstream historical fact sits quietly here. Noblewomen often rose early, aligning their schedules with religious observance and household management. This wasn't optional piety, it was structure. Your day is already divided before your feet touch the floor. Prime, terse, sext, canonical hours shape time itself. Historians still argue whether women experience these hours as spiritual anchors or as another invisible set of bars. From where you lie, it feels like both. You listen for footsteps outside your door. Your lady's maid will come soon, but not too soon. There is etiquette even in waking. She cannot enter until you signal, but she must be ready the moment you do. Authority is strange like that, absolute but dependent. You clear your throat softly, testing your voice. You are aware, even now, of how you sound. A noblewoman's voice is supposed to be calm in the morning. No groaning, no stretching complaints. You are dignity before breakfast. Your eyes drift to the small chest near the bed where personal items are kept, perhaps a prayer book, a comb, a relic wrapped in cloth. Quirky tidbit time. Some noblewomen kept objects believed to protect them during childbirth or ward off illness, including stones said to sweat before poison was present. Did they work? Probably not. Did they make you feel safer? Almost certainly. In a world where medicine is a negotiation between God, herbs, and luck, belief is a form of control. You finally sit up. The floor is cold, even through rushes. You pause because rushing is unseemly. This is not just your body waking, it's your role sliding back into place. Somewhere in another chamber, a man, your husband, your father, your brother, might still be sleeping, but that doesn't change your obligations. Noblewomen are the quiet engines of the household. The morning depends on you noticing that the morning has begun. You reach for the cord or call softly. Come. One word. Enough. The door opens with practiced care, and your maid enters, eyes lowered, movements efficient. She has been awake for hours. That fact floats between you without comment. Power does not require explanation. She draws the shutters wider and the light spills in, revealing dust motes dancing like they're celebrating something. You squint, then smooth your expression. Even alone, even half-dressed, you are being seen. There is no mirror as you'd recognize it, perhaps polished metal, slightly warped. Your reflection is suggestion, not certainty. This is important. You experience yourself through ritual, through others' hands, through routine. Identity is assembled each morning, piece by piece. Hair will be arranged later, layers will be added. But this moment, bare-faced, unadorned, is the closest you get to anonymity. Historians still argue whether medieval noblewomen cherished these early moments of quiet or merely endured them. The truth, inconveniently, is probably both. Some mornings you feel the comfort of repetition. Other mornings you feel the weight of centuries pressing you back onto the mattress, whispering that today will be exactly like yesterday and tomorrow will be worse. Your maid brings water, still steaming slightly if you're lucky. Washing comes next, but not yet. For now, you breathe. You let the room come fully into focus. You remind yourself of who you are supposed to be when the door opens again, when the household truly sees you. Morning rituals are not about hygiene or prayer or clothing, not really. They are about becoming visible in the correct way. And as the light strengthens and the sounds of the castle sharpen, you prepare to begin the slow, deliberate performance of being a medieval noblewoman, one careful morning at a time. The door closes softly behind your maid, but the quiet does not return. Instead, it rearranges itself. You are now awake enough that the sounds of the household no longer drift past you, they land. A bucket sloshes somewhere below. A latch lifts. A voice murmurs instructions that ripple outward like a stone dropped into water. This is the moment when authority wakes up too, stretching its limbs, clearing its throat, preparing to be useful. You sit straighter because posture arrives before breakfast. Your maid returns with purpose now, not just presence. Another follows her in, perhaps a junior attendant, younger, careful not to meet your eyes too long. Hierarchy enters the room with them. You don't announce it, it announces itself. Who stands closest, who speaks first, who waits to be told what they already know. Even half awake, you are reading this like a second language. You nod once, that is enough. The day can officially begin. Servants stir not because they want to, but because you exist. That's not arrogance, that's logistics. In noble households, your waking triggers a cascade of tasks. Fires are adjusted. Water is reheated. Messages are delayed or advanced depending on your mood, which you are expected to keep pleasant. Mainstream historical fact. Noblewomen often managed significant portions of the household, overseeing servants, supplies, and schedules, especially when male relatives were absent. This was not symbolic power. This was actual labor just wrapped in silk and expectation. You ask a question not loudly, not sharply about the weather. It sounds casual. It is. Weather determines laundry, travel, visitors, and whether certain people will complain later. Your maid answers carefully, giving you what she knows and what she thinks you want to hear. Historians still argue whether servants shaped noblewomen's decisions more than records admit, and standing here, you suspect the answer is yes. Information is power, but interpretation is influence. Someone brings your slippers. Someone else retrieves a robe. You notice if they are slow. You notice if they are too fast. You don't comment unless it matters. This is how authority survives, through selective attention. You have learned, over years of mornings just like this, that correcting everything exhausts everyone, especially you. Better to let small things slide and remember them later. Power has a long memory. There is an intimacy here that outsiders rarely imagine. These people see you before the world does. They see your hair unbound, your expression unguarded, the faint shadow under your eyes from a night that was too cold or too noisy or too full of thinking. Quirky tidbit. Some noblewomen preferred the same attendants for decades, forming bonds so deep they left bequests to servants in their wills. Friendship is too small a word. Dependency is too harsh. It lives somewhere in between, unnamed and necessary. You give instructions now, quiet ones, bread for later, a message to be held until after prayers, a reminder about a child's nurse. Each directive is a thread pulled tight to keep the household from unraveling. You do not raise your voice. You don't need to. The room leans toward you without meaning to. Even the younger maid, the one trying not to fidget, stills when you speak. This is not fear. This is training. Historians still argue whether medieval noblewomen experienced this authority as empowerment or obligation. The debate misses something important. It is both, and it changes day to day. Some mornings you feel capable, even sharp. Other mornings you would gladly trade all of it for another hour of sleep and a door that locks. Someone mentions a visitor expected later. You file that away. Someone else mentions supplies running low. You adjust a plan you made yesterday. This is the real morning ritual, not the washing, not the prayer, but the mental arrangement of responsibility. You are already tired and it's barely dawn. Congratulations. You're doing it correctly. A light joke drifts through your thoughts because you have learned humor is safer when it stays inside. If you don't laugh at the absurdity of running a small kingdom before breakfast, you might cry, and crying causes questions. Questions cause concern. Concern causes people to watch you more closely. Best to smile slightly and keep going. The maid closest to you asks permission to open the shutters further. You nod. The light brightens, revealing the practical beauty of the room: solid furniture, sturdy chests, the faint discoloration on the wall where damp has won small victories. Medieval castles were not pristine. They were lived in, breathed in, occasionally leaking. Authority does not keep out mold. You stand now, finally, and the servants step back in unison, giving you space without being told. This choreography is learned early. You feel the floor through your slippers, grounding and cold. Standing is a signal. It means you are ready to be seen beyond this room. It means the household may increase its volume by a degree or two. Somewhere, a door opens wider. Somewhere else, a servant relaxes, knowing the day has a shape now. Mainstream fact slides in quietly here. Noblewomen often acted as intermediaries, relaying petitions from servants or tenants to their husbands or lords. You are already thinking about who might approach you today, what they might ask, how much you can give without causing trouble later. Generosity is expected. Limits are necessary. Balancing them is an art no one formally teaches. One attendant brings a small stool. Another adjusts your robe. They do this with competence born of repetition. You are grateful for it, though you rarely say so out loud. Gratitude is tricky when hierarchy is this steep. Too much warmth invites familiarity, too little breeds resentment. Historians still argue how often affection crossed these lines. You suspect it did, quietly, imperfectly, like everything else. There's a pause, a breath in the room where no one speaks. This is where a modern person might feel awkward. You don't. Silence is part of command. You use it the way others use words. When you finally speak again, it's to ask for the water to be brought. Washing comes next. The ritual will shift from authority to care, from directing others to being handled by them. But before that, you take one more moment to observe. Who looks tired? Who looks nervous? Who looks ready to be sent elsewhere? Leadership, medieval style, is less about speeches and more about noticing. You notice everything. Even now, even before your face has met the water. And as the servants move to carry out your quiet instructions, the household fully wakes around you, responding to your presence like a body responding to its spine, subtly, continuously, without applause. This is your morning power, invisible, essential, and already working harder than anyone will ever admit. The water arrives in stages because everything does. A heavy basin first, carried carefully to avoid sloshing. Water is effort, after all. Then the ewer, steam curling lazily from its spout if the servants have done their jobs well. You inhale as it's set down, catching the faint scent of herbs steeped overnight. Rosemary, maybe, or lavender if someone was feeling ambitious. Cleanliness here is suggestion rather than conquest. You extend your hands without looking and your maid pours. The water is warm, not hot. Hot would be indulgent. Warm is correct. You rub your palms together slowly, feeling the grit of yesterday dissolve. Mainstream historical fact. Despite popular myths, medieval people did wash regularly, especially the upper classes. Full immersion baths were less common, but daily hand and face washing was routine. Historians still argue how clean really was by modern standards, but standing here, you're not trying to impress anyone from the future. You lift water to your face. It beads, then runs. The sensation is grounding, a small mercy. Your maid hands you a linen cloth clean but bearing the faint memory of soap made from ash and fat. Quirky tidbit. Soap recipes varied wildly, and some were so harsh they stripped oils from the skin, leaving noblewomen perpetually dry and irritated. Beauty, as always, had a price, and it was often paid in discomfort. You dab, never scrub. Scrubbing is for servants, or so the thinking goes. Your skin must be preserved, not punished. Pale is fashionable. Freckles are suspicious. A light flush is acceptable only in youth or illness. You are already aware of how your face will be read later, like a document open to interpretation. The basin is moved closer. You wash again, this time your neck, your ears, the spaces that matter. There is a rhythm to this, practiced and unhurried. No one rushes you, but everyone is aware of time. Bells will ring soon. They always do. Historians still argue whether noblewomen experienced these rituals as soothing or tedious. Today, for you, it's both. Some mornings the water feels like renewal. Other mornings it's just another obligation in liquid form. Someone brings a small bowl of something thicker, maybe almond oil infused with herbs. This is rubbed into your hands, your face, a barrier against cold and wind. Medieval skincare was surprisingly sophisticated in theory, if not always in outcome. Recipes passed between women like secrets, promising softness, youth, protection. Some worked. Some definitely did not. There are manuscripts that recommend mixtures involving animal fats, wine, and yes, occasionally crocodile dung. Remember that for later. You won't forget it. You never do. You close your eyes as your maid works carefully around them. This is one of the few moments you allow yourself not to watch. Trust is built here quietly over years. She knows how much pressure to use. She knows which scar to avoid. She knows when not to ask questions. This is care, medieval style, practical, intimate, and unspoken. Mainstream facts slides in again. Noblewomen often had access to better quality water than the general population, drawn from private wells or collected rainwater. This mattered. Clean water was power. It reduced illness, improved appearance, and reinforced social distance. You are aware vaguely that others wash in streams or not at all. You do not dwell on it. Dwelling helps no one sleep. A servant takes the used water away. It will not be wasted. It never is. Someone else will use it. Someone always does. The idea of privacy stops at the skin. Everything else circulates. Your teeth come next. Or rather, your mouth. There is no toothbrush, but there are cloths, twigs, powders. You rinse with wine or vinegar diluted in water, a sharpness that wakes you fully now. Quirky tidbit. Powdered pumice and crushed shells were sometimes used to clean teeth, which worked, at the small cost of slowly sanding them down. Smiling widely is risky. You keep yours contained. Historians still argue whether medieval noblewomen worried about dental health the way we do. You suspect they worried about breath more. Bad breath is a social sin when you live this close to others. You rinse again discreetly and spit into a small vessel that is immediately removed. No comment. No judgment. Your hands are dried. Your face is patted once more. The air feels colder now that the water has gone. Someone adjusts your robe tighter around your shoulders. The ritual of washing is complete, and you feel, if not clean, then at least prepared. Prepared is the real goal. There's a pause before the next step. A breath. You catch your reflection again in the polished metal. The water has done its work, such as it is. You look like yourself, which is both reassuring and disappointing. No transformation, no miracle, just continuity. A light joke floats through your mind. If cleanliness is next to godliness, you're aiming for polite acquaintance. It makes you almost smile. Almost. Historians still argue whether these washing rituals were influenced more by Roman traditions or Christian modesty. The truth, like the water, has been mixed and reused too many times to separate cleanly. What matters is that you are ready now. Ready to have your hair bound, your body layered, your role reinforced. As the basin disappears and the next tools appear, combs, pins, cloths, you feel the morning shift again. Washing was inward, quiet. What comes next is outward, visible, social. And you let your hands rest, already faintly scented with herbs, as you prepare to become, once more, exactly what the day expects you to be. Your hair is the first thing people notice and the last thing they understand. It waits now, unbound, heavier than it looks, carrying last night's warmth and the faint smell of smoke from the hearth. Medieval mornings treat hair like a negotiation between nature, modesty, and message. You sit as the comb appears, teeth wide and unforgiving. The first pull reminds you that beauty is rarely gentle. You do not flinch. You have learned not to. Mainstream historical fact. Noblewomen typically wore their hair covered once married, in keeping with Christian modesty norms, while unmarried women displayed theirs more freely. Hair is not just hair, it's biography. Anyone who sees you can read at least 3 things about you before you speak. Your maid works carefully, starting at the ends because she knows better. Tangled hair is not a personal failing, but it will still be treated like one if not corrected. You feel each stroke, the tug easing as not surrender. Historians still argue how often women wash their hair. Some suggest weekly, others monthly, but brushing did much of the maintenance. Oil was added sparingly, sometimes scented, sometimes not. Today's oil smells faintly of rosemary and something sharper you can't quite place. Quirky tidbit. Some medieval beauty manuals recommended rubbing egg whites or even lizard fat into hair to encourage shine and growth. You have tried neither and you are quietly grateful. There are limits even here. Once smoothed, your hair is divided. The part is precise because precision signals control. Braids follow, drawn tight, close to the scalp. Loose hair suggests youth, availability, or carelessness. None of these serve you today. The braids are coiled and pinned, disappearing into a shape that will soon be hidden anyway. The irony is not lost on you. So much effort for something no one is meant to see. The veil comes next. Linen, light but firm, it settles over your head and shoulders like a soft boundary. You feel the world dim slightly through it, as if someone turned the volume down. Mainstream fact again. Veils served practical purposes, keeping hair clean, shielding from dust, but they were also powerful social signals. A veiled woman commanded respect, or at least expected it. Historians still argue whether veiling was experienced as oppression or protection. Sitting here, you think it depends on the day. Some mornings the veil feels like armor. Other mornings it feels like a curtain you didn't choose. Today it's somewhere in the middle, familiar, unavoidable. Pins secure everything in place. Metal against skin, quick and careful. You've been pricked before, everyone has. A drop of blood is unlucky, or so some say, but also inevitable. Your maid murmurs an apology out of habit. You wave it away. Superstition is selective. You save your worry for bigger things. Jewelry does not appear yet, but the absence is temporary. For now, the focus is structure. Hair frames the face, supports the veil, prepares the body for clothing. This is architecture, not adornment. You hold still because stillness is a form of cooperation. A second maid enters with a coif, another layer, another signal. It fits snugly, containing everything the veil alone cannot. You feel smaller somehow, more contained. That's the point. Medieval femininity prizes containment. Of hair, of voice, of movement. Expansion belongs to others. A light joke crosses your mind. If you added one more layer, you'd qualify as a walking linen archive. It almost makes you smile, almost. Historians still argue whether noblewomen felt pride in these elaborate grooming rituals. Pride seems like the wrong word. You feel competence. You know how this is done. You know when something is wrong. There is comfort in mastery, even when the subject is yourself. The mirror is offered again. You glance not to admire but to confirm. Everything is where it should be. Your face emerges from its frame of fabric and order, recognizable and acceptable. That is enough. As the final pin is placed, the room feels different, more formal, less forgiving. The morning is advancing. You are being assembled, piece by piece, into someone ready to be looked at, listened to, deferred to, or ignored, depending on who enters the room next. Hair done, veil secured, you feel the subtle shift from private to public. The next ritual will add weight, literal and symbolic. Fabric will follow fabric. Identity will follow expectation. And as you sit perfectly still, waiting for the first layer of clothing to be lifted and placed over your shoulders, you recognize this moment for what it is. The last quiet pause before the day fully claims you. The first garment waits folded, patient, as if it understands that haste is unseemly. You stand, not because you want to, but because dressing requires gravity to cooperate. Fabric behaves differently when the body submits to it. Arms lift. Chin tilts. You become briefly abstract, a frame rather than a person. The shift goes on first. Linen, always linen. Clean, yes, but not soft in the way you choose. It brushes your skin like a reminder rather than a comfort. Mainstream historical fact. The linen shift served as the primary barrier between the body and outer garments, protecting expensive fabrics from sweat and oils. It was washed more often than anything else you wore, which is to say, occasionally. Your maid smooths it down with practiced hands, tugging gently so it sits correctly. Wrinkles matter, they show through. Everything shows through eventually. The neckline is adjusted, modest but functional. Too low invites commentary. Too high restricts breathing. There is a sweet spot, and it has been found through centuries of trial and error. Next comes the kirtle. Wool, most likely, dyed a color that signals status without shouting. You step into it, arms guided through sleeves that narrow deliberately at the wrist. Tailoring is not about comfort here, it's about shape. You feel yourself being gathered, contained, encouraged into the silhouette expected of you. Historians still argue whether medieval women experienced these garments as restrictive in the modern sense. Standing here, you think restriction is the wrong word. Direction fits better. The laces are tightened slowly. This is not a corset, contrary to popular myth, but it still shapes you. Your breath shortens just slightly. Enough to remind you to sit straight, move carefully, exist politely. You have learned to breathe around clothing. It's a skill no one applauds. Quirky tidbit. Some medieval texts warn that overly tight lacing could cause fainting, infertility, or moral weakness. The line between medical advice and social control is thin enough to disappear entirely. You let out a controlled breath and signal when it's tight enough. You know your limits. Or at least today you do. Over the kirtle comes the gown. Heavier now. Sleeves that drape or fit depending on fashion and occasion. The fabric brushes your knuckles as it's settled into place, reminding you not to gesture too freely later. Movement is meant to be deliberate. Accidental enthusiasm is unbecoming. Your maid adjusts the shoulders, smoothing seams, checking alignment. Another pair of hands joins briefly, then retreats. Dressing is communal work, even when it feels personal. Mainstream fact again. Noblewomen required assistance to dress in full attire, reinforcing both their status and their dependence. Independence is a modern luxury. Here, cooperation is survival. You feel the weight settle fully now. Wool over linen over skin. Layers upon layers, each one absorbing heat, sound, sensation. The room seems quieter, as if the fabric has dampened not just your body but the air itself. Historians still argue whether such clothing was unbearable in warmer months. You suspect the answer varies by castle, climate, and tolerance for discomfort. A belt is added. Leather or fabric, sometimes ornate. It pulls the whole structure together, giving your body a center again. Without it, you'd feel unanchored. With it, you feel, if not comfortable, then correct. There's a pause as the maids step back to assess. This is quality control. They look for crooked hems, twisted seams, anything that might suggest haste or carelessness. Your appearance reflects not just on you, but on them, on the household, on whoever has authority over all of you. Presentation is collective responsibility. You catch another glimpse of yourself in the mirror. The transformation is nearly complete. Where there was softness, there is now structure. Where there was privacy, there is now purpose. You look like someone who belongs where she is. That matters more than liking what you see. A light joke drifts through your thoughts. If you trip later, at least you'll fall expensively. It almost makes you smile, almost. Historians still argue whether noblewomen internalized these standards of dress or merely performed them. Standing here, wrapped in layers chosen long before you had a say, you realize the answer is, again, both. Performance becomes habit. Habit becomes identity. Identity becomes expectation. The final adjustments are made, sleeves straightened, hem checked. You are dressed now, truly dressed, not just covered. The morning has moved another step forward. Jewelry will come, prayers will follow, the world will see you soon. And as you settle into the weight of your clothing, feeling it press you gently but insistently into place, you prepare to carry not just fabric, but the long, unspoken history stitched into every seam. Jewelry arrives quietly, as if it knows it is optional in function but essential in meaning. A small box is opened, its contents catching the light in brief, controlled flashes. Nothing here is random. Every piece has been chosen, inherited, gifted, or quietly acquired to say something without speaking. You sit again because adornment is best applied from stillness. Mainstream historical fact: noblewomen's jewelry often served multiple purposes, displaying wealth, marking alliances, and acting as portable assets in uncertain times. Gold is beauty, but it's also insurance. You are wearing contingency plans. The first piece is usually the simplest: a ring, perhaps worn every day. It slides onto your finger with familiar resistance. You barely notice it anymore, which is exactly the point. Some rings are engraved with prayers or mottos, pressed against the skin where only you know they exist. Historians still argue whether such inscriptions were meant as spiritual reminders or talismans. You suspect they were both, depending on the day and the fear. A brooch comes next, fastening your gown or veil. It is functional, but that doesn't mean it's modest. Enamel work gemstones, each detail visible to those close enough to matter. Quirky tidbit: certain stones were believed to protect against illness or infertility, while others supposedly revealed poison by changing color. Science is flexible when survival feels fragile. You choose carefully. Not the most elaborate piece, too early, too loud, but not the plainest either. Balance is everything. Jewelry in the morning sets the tone for the day. It tells people how approachable you are, how prosperous your household appears, how much attention you want. Today, you choose quiet confidence. A necklace is offered, then declined with a small shake of your head. Not today. The neckline is already correct. Adding more would invite comment. Your maid notes the decision without reaction. She is very good at not reacting. Historians still argue whether medieval noblewomen enjoyed jewelry for its beauty or tolerated it for its symbolism. Sitting here, you think enjoyment is conditional. You like how the metal warms against your skin. You like the faint weight reminding you of continuity. This ring worn by someone before you, this brooch passed down with stories attached. You do not like how quickly these objects turn into judgments. Your ears may or may not be pierced. Practices varied by region and period. If they are small earrings are placed gently, barely felt once secured. If not, nothing is lost. Restraint is its own ornament. Someone brings a small pouch to be tied at your belt. Inside are items you might need: a bit of thread, a coin, a charm. Quirky again. Charms often mixed Christian symbols with older folk beliefs, worn together without apology. Historians still argue how sincerely these beliefs were held. You wear them anyway. Belief is easier when it doesn't have to choose sides. You stand once more, fully assembled now. Fabric, form, and flash aligned. The room seems to respond, the servants straightening as if your jewelry has completed the picture they were waiting for. Authority looks better when it shines, even subtly. A light joke flickers through your mind. You could probably ransom yourself with what you're wearing, which is both comforting and unsettling. You push the thought aside. Too awake now. Mainstream fact settles in quietly. Noblewomen were often responsible for safeguarding family valuables, especially during travel or conflict. You are not just wearing beauty, you are wearing responsibility. Lose a piece and questions follow. Keep it safe and no one notices. Success is invisible. The box is closed. The jewels that remain will wait for another day, another message to send. You feel complete in the way only routine can make you feel complete. Not excited, not joyful, but ready. The morning continues to advance. Prayers will come next, drawing your attention inward again, away from surface and signal. But for now, you take a breath, feeling metal against cloth, cloth against skin, and the quiet reassurance that you look exactly as you are supposed to. And in a world where appearance opens doors long before words do, that is no small thing. The room grows quieter without being told. Jewelry has finished speaking. Now it's faith's turn. Someone draws a small table closer, setting it near the window where the light is best but not too bold. Your prayer book appears, worn at the edges, pages softened by years of turning. You sit, because kneeling will come later and because pacing matters. Devotion, like everything else, has its order. Mainstream historical fact: daily prayer was expected of noblewomen, often structured around the canonical hours, even if practiced privately. This was not optional spirituality. It was social obligation reinforced by belief. You open the book carefully, as if the words might bruise if handled roughly. The Latin is familiar, even if not fully understood. You know the sounds, the rhythm. You know where to pause. You know which passages your lips shape more easily because you've whispered them in fear before. Historians still argue how deeply medieval women comprehended the theology they recited. Sitting here, you think comprehension comes in layers. You may not parse every clause, but the meaning seeps in anyway. You kneel now slowly because the floor is unforgiving and your gown is not designed for speed. Fabric pools around you, arranged by habit. Your maid steps back, out of sight but not out of reach. Privacy is relative. You lower your eyes. This posture, head bowed, hands folded, is one of the few universally recognized languages you speak. You begin softly. The words are almost muscle memory. Your mind drifts, then returns, then drifts again. This is not failure. This is normal. Quirky tidbit: some medieval devotional texts explicitly warned women against letting their thoughts wander during prayer, while others acknowledged distraction as human and inevitable. God apparently was expected to understand multitasking. You think of the day ahead, of children if you have them, of letters unanswered, of the way the air felt colder this morning than it should have. You fold these thoughts into your prayers without naming them. Intercession is flexible. You pray for health because health is never guaranteed. You pray for safe childbirth whether you're expecting or not. You pray for patience. You always pray for patience. Historians still argue whether noblewomen used prayer as a source of genuine comfort or merely as a performance of piety. Kneeling here, you know the answer is predictably both. Some days, prayer feels like a conversation. Other days, it feels like leaving a message and hoping someone listens. A small reliquary rests nearby, bone, cloth, or something said to be touched by holiness. You touch it lightly, not because you doubt God's reach, but because proximity feels reassuring. Physical faith makes abstract hope manageable. You are not alone in this. Entire economies have been built on it. You rise carefully, joints protesting just enough to remind you of your body. The prayer book is closed, marked with a ribbon. Someone will carry it away. Your devotion is noted, if only by those in the room. That is enough. Piety, like cleanliness, is judged by appearance as much as intent. A light joke hums through your thoughts. If prayers counted as steps, you'd have met your daily movement requirement by now. You almost smile. Almost. Mainstream fact again. Many noblewomen sponsored religious institutions, donated to churches, or supported particular saints. Your morning prayers are not isolated acts. They are part of a network of obligation and favor. Saints are allies. God is the authority above all authorities. You navigate both carefully. As you finish, the room subtly shifts back toward motion. The day resumes its forward lean. Breakfast will come, though lightly. Medicine, perhaps. The household waits for your next cue. You take one final moment, eyes still lowered, letting the quiet settle. Prayer does not erase anxiety, but it softens its edges. It reminds you that the morning is not just yours. It belongs to something larger, older, and less concerned with whether your veil sits perfectly. You stand. Faith folded neatly inside you. You prepare to move on. The morning ritual continues, carrying you from inner stillness back into the managed noise of noble life. The prayers fade, but the taste of ritual lingers. Faith settles quietly in your chest as the next, more practical concern steps forward: your health, managed not by physicians alone, but by habit, hope, and a startling willingness to swallow questionable things before breakfast. A small tray appears, carried carefully, as if its contents might argue if jostled. Bowls, cups, perhaps a folded cloth hiding something unpleasant. Mainstream historical fact: Medieval medicine was rooted in humoral theory. The balance of blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, and noblewomen were expected to maintain this balance through diet, purges, and remedies. Health was not a state, it was a constant negotiation. You are offered the first cup. It smells herbal, sharp, and faintly sweet. You recognize it immediately. A tonic meant to warm the body, encourage digestion, and according to whoever last revised the recipe, prevent wandering humors. Historians still argue whether these remedies had any measurable benefit. You suspect the warmth alone does most of the work. You sip carefully. Too fast is unladylike. Too slow invites concern. The liquid coats your tongue, leaving behind bitterness and the faint aftertaste of honey. You swallow without comment. Reaction is optional. Compliance is not. Another bowl follows, thicker this time. A paste perhaps made from ground herbs mixed with wine or milk. Quirky tidbit: some noblewomen consumed remedies containing ingredients like powdered pearls, ground coral, or dried animal organs, all believed to strengthen the body. Whether they did anything beyond emptying purses is a matter of debate. You take a small amount, enough to show trust, not enough to regret later. Your maid watches closely, trained to notice hesitation. If you flinch, she will remember. If you refuse, questions will follow. Today you comply. Your stomach tightens briefly, then settles. It always does, or at least it usually does. Historians still argue whether noblewomen believed fully in these treatments or merely endured them as part of social expectation. Sitting here, you know belief is flexible. You believe they might help. You believe refusing might harm your reputation more than your health. That's belief enough. A cloth is offered to wipe your mouth. You dab lightly, preserving dignity. The tray is adjusted, one item removed, another revealed. This one smells faintly of vinegar. You hesitate just long enough to be noticed, then take it anyway. Vinegar is said to sharpen the senses, ward off illness, and according to one particularly enthusiastic text, protect against plague. It is also said to make mornings memorable. You swallow, your eyes water, you blink it away. A light joke drifts through your mind. If nothing else, this will ensure you're fully awake. You almost smile, almost. Mainstream fact again. Noblewomen often consulted multiple healers, physicians, midwives, herbalists, sometimes simultaneously. Contradictory advice was common. You learned long ago to average it out. A little of this, a little of that. Enough to satisfy everyone without committing fully to anyone. A final item is offered, smaller and more discreet. A charm, perhaps, or a relic touched briefly to your skin. Medicine and magic overlap here without apology. Historians still argue where one ends and the other begins. You suspect the distinction matters less when outcomes are uncertain. The tray is taken away. Relief washes through you, mild but genuine. The worst is over, for now. You feel steady enough, upright enough, ready to continue. Whether the remedies worked or not is almost irrelevant. The ritual has been completed. The body has been acknowledged. You adjust your sleeves, grounding yourself in fabric and familiarity. The morning is moving again, sliding toward sustenance, toward children, toward responsibility. You carry the lingering taste of herbs and vinegar with you, a reminder that even noble life begins with a small act of endurance. And as the servants step back and the room opens up once more, you prepare to face the day fortified, by belief, by routine, and by whatever strange comfort comes from knowing you've already survived the most questionable part of the morning. Hunger arrives politely because it has learned its place. After prayers and potions, the body is allowed a small concession. Breakfast, if it can be called that, appears without ceremony. No feast, no abundance. Just enough to quiet complaint and signal that the day has officially begun. A small table is drawn closer again, repositioned like a familiar friend. Bread comes first, always bread. Darker than you might prefer, dense with grain, smelling faintly sour. Mainstream historical fact: medieval noblewomen typically ate a light morning meal, often avoiding heavy foods due to religious fasting rules and medical advice. The body was to be eased into the day, not indulged. You break off a piece with controlled hands. Crumbs matter. Crumbs tell stories. You chew slowly, letting the texture do its quiet work. It's filling in the way only bread can be, humble, persistent, unavoidable. Historians still argue how often noblewomen truly fasted according to church rules. Sitting here, you know the answer depends on health, pregnancy, politics, and who was watching. A cup follows. Wine diluted with water. Sometimes ale if the household leans that way. Water alone is risky. This is not indulgence, it's caution. You sip carefully, the familiar tang grounding you. Quirky tidbit. Some physicians recommended wine even in the morning to warm the stomach and encourage proper digestion. Whether it encouraged anything else was politely ignored. You eat standing or sitting depending on custom, but never lounging. Leisure this early would raise eyebrows. You are aware of being observed, not openly but attentively. Servants note what you consume. Your choices ripple outward. If you eat lightly, others may too. If you abstain, someone will whisper about devotion or illness. Historians still argue whether medieval noblewomen experienced food as pleasure or duty. You think pleasure was conditional. Certain days, certain seasons, certain tables. This is not one of them. Morning food is functional. It exists to carry you forward. Someone offers fruit, perhaps an apple, perhaps preserved berries if the season allows. You accept a small portion. Freshness is a luxury. Preservation is an art. You chew thoughtfully, aware that even this small choice might be commented on later. Appetite is interpreted. Moderation is praised. Excess is remembered. A light joke flickers through your mind. Breakfast is less about eating and more about proving you don't need to. You almost smile. Almost. Mainstream fact again. Noblewomen were often advised to eat sparingly to maintain health and modesty. A hearty appetite could be framed as unfeminine. You have learned to manage hunger quietly like everything else. There will be time later perhaps for something warmer, more sustaining. The table is cleared quickly. Nothing lingers. The morning does not pause for digestion. You wipe your fingers discreetly, then fold your hands. The taste of bread and wine remains simple and grounding. Enough. As the servants remove the last trace of breakfast, your attention shifts outward again. Children may be brought to you soon. Letters wait. The household hum resumes, louder now, more confident. You have been fed, medicated, dressed, adorned, and prayed over. The rituals stack neatly behind you. And as you rise, feeling neither hungry nor full but balanced enough to proceed, you step forward into the rest of the day, sustained by routine, restraint, and the quiet understanding that medieval mornings are not designed to satisfy, only to prepare. The children arrive quietly, or at least as quietly as children can. You watch them through the veil of maternal expectation and social distance. Nurses follow, hands ready, eyes alert. The young ones are both yours and not yours, objects of affection and responsibility, shaped by custom as much as by blood. Mainstream historical fact. Noble children were often raised by wet nurses and attendants, with mothers overseeing from a distance rather than engaging in constant care. Emotional bonds existed, but they were structured by social norms. You lift a hand in acknowledgement. The eldest curtsies, or tries to, copying gestures learned yesterday, which in turn copied your gestures from a decade before. The cycle is subtle, almost invisible. You are both participant and observer. Historians still argue how emotionally connected noblewomen were to children they seldom held. The answer is complicated, moving between genuine care and socially mandated detachment. The nurse steps forward with the youngest. You allow the child to grasp your fingers for a heartbeat. Quirky tidbit. Some children were given charms or protective amulets to wear around their necks, believed to ward off disease or evil spirits. You glance at it without comment. It's both superstition and security. The line between the two is as fine as the silk wrapping the veil at your shoulders. You inspect quickly for health and mood, as any competent manager of human property might. A flushed cheek, a mischievous gleam, a cough barely noticeable, all recorded mentally. You will act if needed. Intervention is measured. Overreaction risks both dignity and authority. Children are nourished, sometimes with small breads or watered wine depending on age and custom. You observe, occasionally offering a nod or word. Too much attention is indulgence. Too little invites fear or misunderstanding. Balance is a craft practiced over many mornings, yet each day feels new. Mainstream fact again. Morning feeding rituals reinforced hierarchy, etiquette, and survival. Nutrition was limited, but presence conveyed care without eroding status. A joke passes your lips, soft and fleeting. Do try not to stain the velvet, little one. It lands, or at least is understood, as gentle reproach. Children respond to tone before meaning, you know. Almost everyone does. Historians still argue how much freedom noble children really had within households filled with attendants. Today, the answer seems obvious. They are free in body but bound in expectation, taught to navigate the social currents that have already been flowing before they could walk. The nurse asks quietly about the day's schedule. You nod, confirming small tasks, playtimes, or lessons without becoming involved. Guidance, not engagement, is the morning's rule. You have learned to measure affection with restraint, to show presence without overstepping. This is invisible pedagogy, shaped by generations. You notice the children's eyes flicking toward your attire, the jewelry, the hair that has been meticulously arranged. You imagine their future mornings where they too will sit under observation, ritualized, dressed, and evaluated before breakfast. You suppress a small shiver. Nostalgia is dangerous in the morning. Practicality matters more. One child fidgets and the nurse corrects it silently. You glance briefly, approving. Small lessons stick best when transmitted through observation and gentle guidance. Authority is reinforced, not shouted. And as the children are escorted to the next part of their day, leaving you with the faint scent of early morning milk and bread, you feel the gentle tightening of control settle across your shoulders. The household hum continues, softer now, in anticipation of letters, ledgers, and obligations. You exhale, knowing that nurturing, like everything else, is framed by ritual, measured by duty, and punctuated by subtle joys that are often unspoken. Today, the morning has been observed, guided, and survived by everyone involved, not least by you. Letters arrive next, sliding silently across the table like whispers of distant lives. Seals bear the weight of authority, reminders that the world outside your chamber moves according to forces you cannot always see. You pick one up, fingertips brushing wax, tracing the insignia with a practiced detachment. Mainstream historical fact. Noblewomen were often responsible for reading and even drafting correspondence in the household, managing alliances, finances, and disputes. Communication was power, and you hold it carefully. You break the seal and unfold the parchment. Words in looping script greet you, sometimes politely, sometimes urgently. You do not read aloud. You read as a strategist, a manager, a woman trained to anticipate consequence. Historians still argue how literate noblewomen truly were. Some evidence suggests widespread literacy, especially in vernacular languages, while other records hint at reliance on scribes. Your experience straddles both, literacy as practice, not luxury. Quirky tidbit. Certain letters contain tiny charms or instructions to sprinkle powders to ensure honesty or goodwill. You glance at one such instruction, suppressing a smirk. Magic and etiquette often coexist in unexpected ways. You take note but proceed as if nothing is unusual. You begin responding or dictating responses to requests, inquiries, and notifications. Your tone is polite, firm, and economical. Every word counts. Too many and the sender may assume weakness. Too few and you risk appearing brusque. This balancing act is subtle, practiced over countless mornings. Even silence can speak volumes if wielded properly. A messenger waits silently, hooded, gloves tucked neatly, hands empty until given permission. You sign or nod. The seal is impressed, wax warmed by careful flame. You hand the letter back, ready to be delivered. Small victories unnoticed but essential. Meanwhile, another parchment arrives, this one from the household steward, detailing supplies, debts, and obligations. You scan quickly. Everything has a consequence, a ripple effect. Historians still argue whether noblewomen actively managed finances or merely oversaw scribes. You know the answer. Survival often requires both. You make mental notes, adjusting plans, shifting priorities. The day's structure takes shape under your gaze. You pause to sip water, a brief indulgence after the intensity. A light joke flits through your mind. Letters never complain, but people do. Almost a smile. Almost. Quirky tidbit again. Some correspondences were encrypted with simple ciphers or invisible inks, a practice not just for kings and generals but for noblewomen safeguarding family secrets. You glance at a letter, imagining the possibilities. Did anyone decode this wrong and panic? Most likely. Did it matter? Rarely. But the thrill of subtle subterfuge lingers in your awareness. The room hums with quiet energy now. Servants anticipate further instructions. Children have been guided away. Breakfast is done, prayers concluded. You sit in a rare moment of centrality, not dressing, not washing, not feeding, but commanding. Information is your domain, and you navigate it carefully, aware of the weight it carries. A final glance at the stack of letters reminds you that decisions must be made. Authority is performed in choices. Which letter to answer first, which to delegate, which to ignore. The act is mundane yet profound, the subtle power of morning decisions cascading across the household and beyond. As the sun strengthens, slipping fully through the shutters, you feel the slow acceleration of the day. Morning rituals, quiet and deliberate, have moved you from sleep to strategy. You are dressed, adorned, prayed over, fed, children accounted for, and correspondence managed. The day has been framed in part by your hands. And as the servants wait for your next word, you sense the pattern of the morning. Ritual, observation, action, repeated endlessly, quietly, efficiently. This is the architecture of noble mornings, unseen by most, carried out by few, remembered by fewer. By now, the morning has shifted from private routines to tasks that ripple beyond the chamber. You rise again, adjusting your skirts, feeling the weight of responsibility layered like the fabrics themselves. Today, as every day, includes oversight of the household, supplies, schedules, staff, and the subtleties of etiquette that keep a noble home functioning. Mainstream historical fact: noblewomen often acted as household managers, supervising servants, kitchens, laundries, and finances, particularly when their husbands were absent. Authority was practical, not symbolic. You walk through the chambers, noting minor imperfections: a thread out of place, a basin not emptied, a latch left slightly ajar. Small things, easily corrected, but signs of attention or neglect. Servants meet your gaze with practiced deference. Some flinch, others wait silently. Historians still argue how much of this management was delegated versus actively performed. You know the answer: both, always both. Quirky tidbit: some noblewomen maintain notebooks, almost like early spreadsheets, recording exactly how many candles were burned or loaves of bread consumed. You imagine yours being compiled in neat lines of ink, an intimate audit of domestic life. The thought almost amuses you. A minor conflict arises in the kitchen, a disagreement over the preparation of bread. You step lightly into the room. Your presence alone, calm and measured, resolves what words might not. Authority, you realize, is often invisible. It is the air that shapes movement without making sound. You inspect supplies personally. Grains, oils, and preserved fruits are accounted for. Nothing is extravagant, nothing excessive. Mainstream fact again: storerooms were carefully maintained, with rationing influenced by season, status, and household size. Wastage was unacceptable, efficiency was praised. You measure with eyes and hands, not just pens and lists. A maid approaches, whispering about a visitor expected later. You make a note, file the information quietly. Anticipation is part of governance. Quirky tidbit: visitors often brought small gifts, sometimes subtle reminders of obligations or debts. The exchange of these objects is ritualized diplomacy disguised as courtesy. You pause near the window, taking in the courtyard below. Horses are being brushed, gates checked, deliveries arriving. Even this brief moment reinforces your awareness. The morning does not exist in isolation. Every small action you've taken, washing, dressing, praying, feeding, reading, supervising, threads into a wider network of expectation and consequence. Historians still debate whether noblewomen viewed these tasks as empowering or exhausting. Today you feel both, sometimes simultaneously. A light joke flickers through your mind. The bread might argue with the butter, but only if you look away. Almost a smile. Almost. You return to the main hall, checking lists and giving quiet instructions. Nothing flashy, nothing ceremonial, just the steady flow of management, punctuated by occasional observation and subtle correction. Each instruction, each nod, each glance carries meaning. The morning is now in full motion, a symphony of coordination that requires precision, patience, and a touch of performance. By mid-morning, the house hums with efficient, almost invisible life. You feel the satisfaction of a morning well conducted. The water has been poured, the hair bound, the meals served, children guided, letters read, jewelry applied, and supplies inspected. Each ritual built upon the last, every moment layered with care, authority, and nuance. And as you stand surveying the unfolding day, you recognize the quiet artistry of noble mornings, the delicate choreography of presence, ritual, and responsibility that transforms routine into power. The day stretches ahead, but the morning's momentum carries you forward. You move toward the chamber where correspondence and household accounts intersect, a place where paper and ink meet authority. Each document is a small current, waiting for your attention to redirect it. Mainstream historical fact: noblewomen were often literate in both vernacular and Latin, managing finances, estates, and correspondence. Their influence was administrative as well as social, wielded quietly but effectively. You lift a ledger, the pages soft with use, inked in meticulous script. Numbers, names, obligations, all present in disciplined order. You run a finger along the rows, verifying, correcting, planning. Mistakes are not merely errors, they ripple outward. A miscalculation can cost a servant a loaf, a tenant a favor, a household more than you care to think about. Historians still argue how much oversight noblewomen exercised versus how much was delegated. You know the truth. Oversight always requires judgment, even if the hands doing the work are not your own. Quirky tidbit: some households use tallies or knotted cords as early accounting tools, each knot representing a commodity or debt. You imagine these primitive ledgers as companions to your written record, a tactile memory of wealth and obligation. Efficiency and superstition intertwined. A brief interruption, a servant's hesitant question about provisions for a visiting dignitary, pulls you from the ledger. You answer calmly, almost mechanically, because rituals of hospitality demand foresight and precision. Failure is visible here. Minor errors can cascade into offense, misunderstanding, or gossip. The social world of the household operates on observation as much as performance. You adjust a plan, making mental notes of the day's contingencies. A light joke crosses your mind. Diplomacy is just math with feelings, and someone always miscalculates. Almost a smile. Almost. You stand, ledger in hand, moving through the hall to check on minor repairs. Doors, hinges, windows, fires, all are noted. You tap a finger here, nod there. Small gestures, small corrections. They signal competence. Mainstream fact: noblewomen were expected to know the state of their households intimately, from food stores to roof leaks. Knowledge was authority. Historians still debate whether the administrative role empowered women, or merely burdened them with visible responsibility while men enjoyed public authority. You feel both the weight and the skill, aware that morning rituals and management merge into one continuous exercise of power and endurance. Quirky tidbit: some women kept personal codes for prioritizing tasks, like attend to hunger before decorum, decorum before wealth. You think of your own mental codes, slightly more refined but equally strategic. You pause at the doorway, observing servants moving efficiently under your gaze. Authority, you notice, does not always need speech. A presence, a glance, an expectation suffices. The morning's choreography extends outward, touching lives without the need for fanfare. And as you return to your chamber, ledger set aside, ready to receive further messages or oversee the next household ritual, you feel the quiet satisfaction of continuity. Every layer of routine, the washing, dressing, feeding, praying, correspondence, and inspection, has built a foundation upon which the day now unfolds. The morning has shaped not just your body, but your presence, influence, and readiness. You allow yourself a brief moment to exhale. The morning is largely complete, yet its echoes linger. These rituals, small and deliberate, prepare you for everything else. The household hums around you, orderly, attentive, awaiting your next cue. Power, you realize again, is often invisible, carried in gestures, decisions, and the subtle rhythm of a well-managed morning. The final touches of the morning now revolve around appearance in motion. You rise fully, adjusting layers of fabric, feeling the weight and the warmth settle differently as you move. The day has shifted from static ritual to dynamic expectation. Mainstream historical fact: noblewomen were expected to maintain poise and presence at all times, as their movements communicated status and authority as effectively as speech. Every step, turn, and gesture is measured, rehearsed, or corrected. You glide toward the hall, aware of how the light catches your hair and jewelry, how the folds of your gown sway with each stride. A maid follows discreetly, adjusting hems that catch on furniture or rugs. Historians still argue how much of this careful comportment was internalized versus enforced. You suspect it is both. Practice becomes instinct, instinct becomes performance. Quirky tidbit: some manuals suggested that the slightest tilt of the head or hand could suggest humility, elegance, or even subtle flirtation. You smile faintly at the thought. The room is silent enough that your amusement is private. Politeness and performance are inseparable, even in empty corridors. You check your reflection in polished metal panels and shielded mirrors along the way. Every angle matters. The veil remains in place, hair smooth beneath it. Jewelry catches the sun just enough. Expression is neutral but alert. You have been dressed, prayed over, fed, adorned, and managed. Now you inhabit the space you've carefully prepared, a walking extension of the morning rituals. A small interruption. A servant asks a minor question about a guest's arrival. You answer calmly, directing them without raising your voice. Authority now flows as easily as the fabric around your arms. Subtle shifts, tiny corrections are enough. Mainstream fact again: noblewomen often acted as first-line managers for guests and household events, subtly asserting social control even when not publicly acknowledged. You move to the window, adjusting drapes to let in light while controlling glare on polished surfaces. Quirky tidbit: some noblewomen believed sunlight could carry disease or misfortune, and would therefore manipulate exposure carefully. You do so instinctively, unaware that superstition and practicality often overlap seamlessly in daily life. The morning has transformed you into a presence, not just a person. Each ritual: washing, hair, clothing, adornment, prayer, feeding, correspondence, household oversight, has compounded, layering discipline, grace, and awareness. Historians still debate whether noblewomen experienced this as empowerment or obligation. You feel both. Each step is freedom framed by expectation, authority exercised through careful choreography. A light joke crosses your mind. If anyone accuses you of idleness, remind them that it took a small army and several herbs to get here. Almost a smile. Almost. Finally, you pause at the threshold where the private household meets the public sphere. Guests, errands, petitions, and duties await. The morning has prepared not only your body, but your mind, your presence, and your subtle influence over the space around you. You inhale, steadying the rhythm of shoulders, hands, and eyes. And as the servants retreat to resume their own tasks, leaving you poised in the quiet glow of mid-morning, you recognize the pattern of the day unfolding. A continuation of the morning rituals, extending outward into the wider world, carrying with them authority, grace, and the careful artistry of noble life. At last, the morning edges toward midday, leaving a trail of accomplishments, small and subtle. You stand at the center of the chamber, fully assembled, fully observed, and fully aware of the invisible authority layered into every movement, glance, and breath. The rituals have woven together into a single, continuous thread: washing, dressing, adorning, praying, feeding, overseeing, and moving. Mainstream historical fact: medieval noblewomen's mornings were long and meticulously structured, designed to prepare them physically, socially, and mentally for the demands of household and court. Today, you carry that legacy with every gesture. The household hums around you, synchronized yet flexible. Servants anticipate your steps, preemptively adjusting fires, tidying floors, and preparing spaces. Even the air seems calibrated, the light falling in patterns that flatter both body and fabric. Historians still debate whether the rigidity of these routines was oppressive or empowering. You feel neither and both, finding strength in the ritual itself, comfort in its predictability. Quirky tidbit: some mornings began with the placement of tiny charms near doors or windows, intended to protect the household from ill fortune or mischievous spirits. You glance at a small charm perched discreetly and allow yourself a small, private acknowledgement. Superstition and routine coexist seamlessly here. A knock interrupts your reflection, a messenger bearing news from a distant estate, a summons, or perhaps a request for counsel. You accept it with poised composure, folding the note into the weight of the morning's accomplishments. Even interruptions follow their own ritual. Receive, acknowledge, evaluate, act. Timing is authority. Reaction is measured. You take a moment to adjust your gown and veil once more, noting how each layer has settled through the morning's movements. Each pin, each fold, each ribbon has held its place. The reflection in the polished metal panels shows a woman who is both composed and ready, sculpted by habit, expectation, and careful attention. Mainstream fact again. Noblewomen's daily routines were as much about cultivating presence and authority as they were about personal care. Every detail communicates status, propriety, and command. A light joke drifts through your mind. If anyone doubts your influence, remind them that it took at least 3 maids, 1 nurse, and a prayer book to get you standing like this. Almost a smile. Almost. You move toward the window to take in the courtyard. Horses, carts, and attendants are in motion. Each observed detail adds to the mental map you carry. Who is ready, who requires direction, what might go wrong. Ritual has taught you observation as much as obedience. Quirky tidbit. Some noblewomen kept mental logs of servant behavior alongside household inventories, noting small patterns for future correction or reward. The morning has ended, but its influence lingers. You feel the rhythm of hours in your bones, the tug of clothing, the faint scent of herbs, the subtle pressure of jewelry, the imprint of prayer, and the hum of a household moving in synchrony. Historians still argue whether noblewomen found fulfillment in these rituals or merely endured them. You know the truth is layered, as every morning is layered, and both answers can coexist comfortably. You exhale, feeling the continuity of care, preparation, and authority settle across your shoulders. The day stretches ahead, ready to be met with composure and practiced attention. You have been dressed, adorned, fed, prayed over, and observed. You have managed people, plans, and small contingencies. The morning, in all its layered complexity, has served its purpose, shaping body, mind, and presence for whatever the day demands. And now, as you pause, letting the final echoes of ritual fade into the day, you recognize a simple truth. Mornings are not merely a prelude. They are the architecture of noble life, crafted carefully, executed consistently, and carried forward with quiet authority. The morning has passed, leaving you settled, measured, and ready. Layers of fabric, responsibility, and ritual cling lightly, not as weight but as gentle structure. You breathe slowly, allowing the mind to drift through the images of the day, maids smoothing skirts, children learning obedience in quiet gestures, letters and ledgers moving like silent currents. Each moment has been observed, acted upon, and recorded, if only in memory, and the rhythm of it soothes. You feel the warmth of sunlight filtering through windows, soft against skin and fabric alike, the subtle scent of herbs and wood smoke lingering in the air. Every sound, every movement has been accounted for, and now there is a pause. Even the household hum recedes slightly, leaving only the quiet resonance of accomplishment and the promise of continuity. The day stretches ahead, but the morning's careful choreography has left you grounded, ready, steady. There is comfort in routine, even when it feels demanding. Rituals repeat, layers accumulate, and life flows with a rhythm you can trust. The past, present, and expectation intertwine in the small acts of care, observation, and authority that define your space. You are dressed, adorned, prayed over, fed, and prepared, not just for the day, but for the unfolding life that continues beyond these hours. Now, as your thoughts soften and the mind slows, let the calm linger. Feel the weight of fabric and responsibility dissolve into the quiet, leaving only presence. Each breath carries you gently forward, steady and assured. The morning may be complete, but its echoes remain in posture, in awareness, and in the gentle confidence of having been fully prepared. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Sweet dreams.